we're going to turn that, and that into this. Stay tuned. So we just got the support runners in place. We do everything from underneath so that when we're finished, we do not have any screws or nails on the top. Typically use deck screws. If I can, I buy by the bucket. And they just work so much better than nails. So now we're getting ready to do the seats. We've already laid out our pieces, marked off, got our spacers in. That one's not done yet. Put glue, drill, and put our screws. So now we got both of the seats done. It's time to take these off, pop the clamps, and put our tabletop back on and attach the legs. So I went ahead and sanded around the corners, just light sanding on top. Make sure you get rid of any pencil marks and possibly any stains and some other stuff. Just a quick one over with the 120 grit sandpaper. We'll come back and round off the corners and stuff later, but this is right now just so because it's going to be hard to reach the underside of this table once we put the legs on and the seats. So just kind of do a quick over and kind of clean it down. And while we're at it, we go ahead and brand our and date. So if you look at this table, we got the same thing underneath here somewhere. Here we go. That one, I think I gotta go back and clean up some of the letters I couldn't reach. This one, we just cleaned up the splinters off the side pieces. Still gotta go over the rest of it. But we'll worry about that once it's higher up in the air and get up here. Here we're using 3-inch screws. You can go 4 as well, just to make sure you get far enough into the meat. We angled 2 from high and then 2 pretty much parallel and slightly angled. This just helps with extra rigidity. And just make sure we square it all up before we put it on. We're close. I'll pull it to match here in a second. So we got the legs on. Now we put our seats up on top. This is not their final position. This is just where we have them prepping. We gotta add some glue here on both sides, and that's gonna fit up under here. And what we'll do is we'll use clamps to clamp it into place, make sure everything's aligned properly, and then we'll screw it down. But this is the way I usually build my tables. And it goes fairly quickly, especially for one person. I just wanted to show you all these clamps before. This is just to encourage it, to make sure we got a good fit that way. Sometimes it fits up perfectly, sometimes it's too wide, sometimes it's just not wide enough. And then I got these at Tractor Supply. We might be able to get them at Harbor Freight. Oops. Trying to see it better. Same with this one, and then again, same thing, just trying to encourage it to fit. And then we'll do the screw on. So we got the seats on, everything's in place. The only thing we still got left is the actual table brace itself. Went ahead and marked them, and how we do that, so we set up a square and then draw a line, and then I'll show you another trick to get it flush with up the top and the bottom, kind of like you see down here. Went ahead and sanded. This is something I want to show you all too, is we round off the edges So when you drag it across concrete, you're not going to chip and split the ends. I still need to do a little bit more sanding on it, but I went ahead and cleaned up as much as I could on the sides here, especially where it's going to be hard to reach underneath on both sides. Other than that, it's pretty close to being finished. I was hoping to stain tonight, but I still got too much sanding to do tomorrow. So I guess we'll wait a couple of days for the stain. I gotta fill in some cracks as well. As this wood dries, it has a tendency to split if it dries too fast. So we gotta keep it out of the sun. And, well, I guess that'll be it for tonight. I gotta go to work tomorrow, so. And I gotta get this one out to a client as soon as I can finish it. And that'll stay like that overnight and should be good. Oh, I'll see y'all in the morning. So I got the table off the stands on the ground. Got the supports in. What I was going to show was the cut so that it fits fine. You basically take the width of a 2x4 and mark off the cut that you cut. Also, it's important to know number 1 and mark your table leg number 1. Oh, where's it at over here? Number 2. Yeah, my 2's funny because I was doing this upside down. Number 2, knowing which end is top, so your marks go back the same way, and you know which end to cut the clip. And by doing so, if you do it all right, it lines up well there, and it automatically lines up well there. Now, wood putty or homemade wood putty with wood glue and sawdust. Take the sawdust out of the sander that I was sanding yesterday. Put it into a container so we have access to it. And then mix. Here's my mixing board. And what I do is I use the miter saw. Almost all the cuts on those 2 tables are all done here. Pretty much for any of my outdoor furniture, the miter saw is the number 1 tool. And then if I'm ripping these boards in half for a smaller board, then I'll use a table saw. But other than that, miter saw is it. So if you're into picnic tables, miter saw is the number 1. You use any saw. You can even use the trusty handsaw. Can't go wrong. But miter saw is the one my preferred choice. Is much faster, much cleaner. I use an 80 or 90 tooth, which gives me these really nice clean edges. Less sanding. I found that the cleaner your boards and the cleaner your cuts, the less prep work you have to do before you're finished. The worse your boards are and the rougher your cuts, much more sanding and more time. So it's an offset. Clean boards, more expensive and faster. Cheaper boards, a lot more work, a lot more time. So you have to outweigh your costs. Do my cheaper boards is worth more or less than my time putting into it? These ones, they pretty much run out of clean boards, so I'm stuck with knots. This table I pretty much got rid of. I used no knots on it, but I did have splitting because the wood dries too fast. Hence the reason you see all the little putty marks. I would fill some knots, but for the most part it's fairly clean. This one, not quite so much, but in the end it'll work out. Let this dry overnight, and tomorrow tons of sanding, and hopefully I can start the staining. I was hoping to stain and spray today, but didn't happen. Yep, have a good night. Okay. So we're about to start the sanding. I got my gimbal for my phones charged, so maybe the videos will turn out better today. So if you see a slight difference in the video, that's why I got the gimbal set up. And I got the tripod over there. We'll see if this will work fine. But we'll be sanding, getting it ready for the stain, and we might even do the stain today. We'll see how this is going to work. Well, got them finished sanded. See what the bottoms look like. You can see all my screws. Now they're ready for stain. So that'll end this part, and pretty much I sell them both unfinished and finished, and this is considered unfinished. It's sanded down to a 220, so it's nice and smooth. It's up to the customer if they want to seal it or something. I highly recommend it. But aside from that, these two will get stained and finished completely out. One is for a customer. It's already ordered and put a deposit down. The other one, well, it'll be for sale at the flea market or on Facebook, whichever comes first. Oh, also, this makes making the legs much easier. You can tell the screws that I use, all the deck mate, typically this guy. This is what makes assembly so much easier. I don't have enough to do a completed one, but this will give you an idea. Basically put the two legs in. We're just going to use this as an example. And you take one of these, which is actually so that's pretty much how it goes. You put the legs in. Once they're cut, you put that on. Everything's pre-measured out. And you just glue, screw. And that's it. Speeds it up much faster, making the legs, especially when you make 20, 30 of these. I'll bring this one on down. This one has practically no knots. This one, however, has knots. Some people like it, some don't. They do look cool when they're not shrunk. The other thing I like about knots is they shrink. And then fall out. But typically what I personally go for is tight grain. Tight grain allows it to take more weight and not break or bow as much. This one I got fair. Hoping to get more tighter grain on it, but I got on the seats at least. That's where it counts. That's where most of your weight is. You have supports underneath, but on this size of table, there is no supports. If I go 6 foot or 8 foot, I usually put supports as well. 10 foot, I put in that whole extra A-frame underneath it. Well, that's going to end this. Look us up, Little Manger Woodshop on Facebook and littlemanger.com. Also hit us up on Patreon. Have a good day.